Hello, hello, hello. I am Stacey Thomas, Unrestricted Unlimited. And for those new watchers, I simply means don't put me in a box. I have yet to see all that God has for me, okay? So I thank you for watching. I've got a very special guest coming on. I like to let people know when I feel like I'm blessed. So sometimes I believe that blessings will come directly to me, for me. And then I believe that sometimes I'm merely the bridge that leads someone else to the blessing. In this case, I'm not going to be selfish. I received the blessing a few weeks ago. All right. And the blessing would, let's say, is such a huge blessing that God would not allow me to be selfish and keep it to myself. So tonight I bring to you, her name is Toni Moore. It's Toni Moore Esquire. And I want to tell you a little bit about her. Not too much because some things people need to say themselves. From living off of welfare benefits to building generational wealth, Toni Esquire comes with an arsenal of accomplishments. She holds degrees from the University of Pennsylvania, Bachelor in American History, Temple Law School, Juris Doctorate 1998, Temple Law Masters in Taxation 2006. Through the years, Toni has served as an adjunct professor at Temple University and Eastern University. Toni has shared platforms, listen, people. Toni has shared platforms as a speaker with award-winning and best-selling authors and coaches, such as Lisa Nichols, Ayana Van Zant, Tiana Von Johnson, Jamal Bryant, Willie Jolly, Cheryl Wood, Trevor Otts, Simon Bailey, and that's just to name a few. And Toni has contributed her creative pen to the literary industry by authoring 5 books and co-authored over 10 books. As the CEO of More Legal Firm and Wealthier Solutions LLC, Toni is obsessed with empowering women to uplevel their worth to unlock wealth through entrepreneurship. So I'm going to make a disclosure here because from what I've read about her and from what I've heard from her, she's not just someone that teaches women, okay? Sure, there's things for women, but it's also something that she teaches men too, what she's speaking about. So let's bring Toni on. Listen to me getting comfortable, Toni. I'm sorry, Mrs. Moore.
This is us. It's us girlfriends today.
How are you?
All is well. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, I'm thankful that you accepted the invite. I'm gonna try to hit on the key points and a couple people that I've told about you. I believe in order for someone to really know all that you have to offer is they're going to have to follow you themselves. They're going to have to Google you themselves. They're going to have to talk to you themselves. So we're just going to try to do our best and see what exactly it is that God needs people to know about you tonight.
That's okay.
Let's start with Mrs. Moore. Let's start with, tell me, if you had to sell yourself right now, tell me, who are you in 2022?
Wow, that's good action. So I am Toni Shawan, right? I am a woman who is hell-bent on helping us change our energy, our dynamics when it comes to money, power, success. I realize that, there's something deep down on the bottom of my soul that's like, we can't live beneath our godly privileges. We can't be broke asset chicks. We can't be waiting for sugar daddies to show up or knights in shining armors, because you know what? That is something that told us as children. But as grown women, we have to understand that there's a choice. And so for me, I've spent over 20 years in the sphere of finances, securities, insurance, mutual funds, and doing compliance work with trustees and talking about people. And it's just something inside of me is like, it's not a hierarchy. It's like a split type of life between the boardroom full of white men who think I should know a place and people who look like me and talk like me, who is cleaning up, looking for breadcrumbs and being stretched out for financial credit and living beneath our privileges. And even taking the class that I've been recently taking, I'm like, for me, it's more like I talk about generational wealth, but we got to build up our generational worthiness of our soul, what we do, our skills, how we're going to raise our kids, worthiness on how we're going to get to the other side of the road, worthiness on how we're going to allow ourselves to be the healers. Like, I didn't know until like this week that I bust out crying when I realized that no one really taught me how to make money work for me. They told me to go to school, get good jobs, and stuff like that. But no one ever said, but Tone, you're going to make this money, not so that you can validate your value, but you're already worthy. God has already given you the power to create wealth. Now you got to dig deep into your skills, and you got to kill that spirit of poverty. That's where I'm at in my life right now, realizing that until we kill that spirit of poverty that has been passed on for generations to generations to generations, we just want to replace our parents. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be no broke ass that chick waiting for a man. I can't replace my mama like that. I can't be waiting for someone to give me just over broke money. I can't be replaced like that. Toni Shawana has gone through so much, from the hood, childhood, abandonment, rape, molestation, living secretly, then growing up and tiptoeing in stilettos. And at over 50 years old, I'm like, but when I look back over my life, and I'm like, well, why did God bring me here? It's good to be healthy. It's good to tell women that they're worthy. It's good to figure out what their comfort zone level is and then take it there and make them appreciate their value. See, my mama didn't have value. Somebody snatched that away from her. So she didn't really teach us value. I lost 2 sisters because nobody taught them value. And I couldn't really save them, but I'm just like, yo, money gives you options, So that's why I talk about money. I talk about the power within ourselves to take our skills, whether it's the skill on writing a play that everybody want a piece of, or, being a director, or turning a manuscript into a script that studios is fighting for. Like, we got to understand and appreciate that the one thing that is deep down on our soul that keeps on showing up, that one thing that just won't stop, it just won't quit. That's the thing that we have to keep on working on. That's the thing that we got to bring to the table. That's the thing that we got to value. Because I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of people rebuking me when I talk about money. But when it comes to offering, they got their hands out. When they need something for their kids, they got their hands out. When they need something with regards to the PPP loans, they don't mind almost going to jail for the very thing that they're entitled to, based if they bankroll their brilliance. So as a lawyer, of course, I'm helping people build their business, and I'm helping them to comply with their business, because this is their way of building that generational wealth. And as a women's empowerment speaker, yeah, I serve men, but let's keep it real. 99.9% of my clients are women, because just like Eve, we can't just sit still in the garden picking boogers and waiting for somebody to give us something. You're naming and claiming the animals in the kingdom. No, we got to see bigger, better, and more. So it's mostly women who are making those changes possible. And as a God girl, a kingdom chick, I'm always reminding people there is a Jeremiah 31:22 out there that's reminding me that God wants to see a new thing. Something as new as a woman empowering and circling and protecting a man. Not like men need to be replaced. I'm happily married of 24 years with 2 sons. But God gave Eve a mission too. So that's who I am. That's who I be. And that's how I show up, unapologetically talking about money.
Mrs. Moore, this is what keeps me listening to your podcast every day. Excuse me. And what I find interesting is you're this strong woman, but you have no problem admitting where you came from. Tell them, I mentioned it in your bio. Where did you come from? And what was in you that you didn't continue to live as you were raised up?
So for me, I actually come from Harrisburg, right? Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My mom was a teenage mom. She had her own issues. She passed away. I have siblings. So, when we tell the story, we don't tell everybody's story. But let's just say, thank God that none of her kids was her daddy's. So at the end of the day, what I came from was a woman who somebody had muzzled her mission, had muzzled her worth. She learned that if you tell the truth, you get kicked out of the family. So unfortunately, when I showed up and she couldn't get out, she just found somebody else to be my daddy, right? I was like 39 when I found out that the third daddy was really my daddy, But what I realized, and I learned this when I was at the University of Penn, is that when I was a smart girl. I was super smart, always smart. That's my God gift. And what I realized when I took this psychology class was that the pain of being molested and not being able to tell, the pain of being snatched from my mama, from who I thought was my daddy, telling and then getting beaten so badly that I forgot who I was. Those demons, those transgressions was coming to me. I was in a new place from the projects to the University of Penn, but the old scared me showed up. So I took this class and I realized that they were talking about Erickson's 7 stages of development. And that's like really good just to even find out that. But when you in struggle, you don't get a chance to be fully taught of who you are with regards to trust and knowing your voice and things of that nature. So I realized that I was sabotaging myself in my new environment where I now had a new domain, a new domicile where I could have taken dominion. And I was sabotaging myself because that's what I learned to do. I didn't like being ejected. Foster care makes you feel ejected. Not knowing who your family is, living in poverty makes you feel ejected. I didn't like that abandonment. But when I realized that it was the scars, that I brought the scars and the scars was impeding my success, it's something inside of me that was like, no. And then, so I got on academic probation because I didn't show up fully at the University of Penn. But then I cleaned my ways. You know how we clean your ways up, right? But then the second time around, I got on it again, almost. But this time I advocated for myself. I had never advocated after I told on my mom and her secret at 4 years old. But something inside of me was like, no, you got to advocate for yourself. And I went to like all of my professors and I said, look, if I can retest, change my grades some kind of way, I won't get on academic probation, because you get on academic probation the second time, you get kicked out. And I convinced this one teacher to allow me to go. Now, prior to getting raped on campus, I was still not liking it because I didn't feel good. I was a kid in poverty. I did not know what rich looked like. I didn't know what money looked like. You know what I mean? Even when I was at the Milton Hershey School, I was still poor. But I still had this proudness inside of me that I did not want to show up as the welfare kid. So I convinced my professors. And what I learned in that time period, I took this one class, didn't show up for myself. He was like, look, even if you get an A, I'm not giving you an A. I'll give you just enough so that you don't flunk out. And guess what? He gave me just enough so that I didn't flunk out. Instead of getting the A, I got a C minus. But that was just all that I needed to do two things to help me realize that if God brings you to, he will see you through. So he wasn't going to laugh at me just because he brought me to the Ivy League and said, okay, now that's your story. You got here, but you didn't have the skills. No, when I realized that, it was something inside of me. And that awakened something that even though I had messed up, I had this feeling of guilt because I had come so far. And, I know now in my 50s that I did not allow myself to be raped. But when you come from a church, that makes it seem like if you do something wrong, God's punishing you. But I got over that. So sometimes we got to get over the scars. And that's what I allowed myself to do. And it was just something about a dream. It's something was like, Tone, you want to be a lawyer. You want to be a lawyer so you can advocate for kids so that they don't have to live. That was always my dream from Milton Hershey School, right? So that's what kept me awake. That's what made me thrive. That's what made me go from like a nearly like, why is she even at University of Penn to like stellar. And then I got into law school, and then law school was like my breathing ground. That's like where the phoenix rose. Like, oh my God, I was supposed to do this. You know what I mean? It was like, I found my voice. I found my vision. I found a value within me, So that's how it changed. But it's sometimes we get stuck in the scars. I think my mom got stuck in the scars. Wow. But I didn't want to get stuck in a scar. So I figured out some kind of way to break through that scar so I don't end up in the status quo of being a first generation kid who came from the projects to Penn only to get ejected because I wasn't worthy.
Wow. And you've got a lot of things, well, a few things going on. So the law firm came before the advocating for women, or were they happening at the same time for you?
You want to know something funny? So when I went to law school, I was like, I'm going to be like Johnny Cochran. And then I was like, I'm going to be the female version of Johnny Cochran. So I went to law school, and when I got out, I clerked for Judge Jacqueline Allen in Philadelphia. And then after I clerked for Judge Allen, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a courtroom attorney. And I went to this law firm, and I was doing insurance defense. Hated it because I'm like, dude, I came from the projects, and I'm denying people. That's what insurance defense is. You would deny people, right? I was like, I don't like this. And one of my colleagues had asked me to take over this divorce case. And I took over a divorce case, and I was like, I don't want to do divorce, even though, remember, in undergrad, I wanted to advocate for the kids. I was like, I don't want to do that. And she said, please, I'm leaving the practice of law. Can you do this for me? I said, okay, yeah, sure. And I ended up taking over a divorce case, and then end up leaving the firm and starting my first firm, because, More Legal Firm is like the 5th iteration of me trying to figure it out. And when I started doing family law, that's when I realized the dichotomy between men and women. Like, first of all, if you have to end up in family law court, like now I'm in trademark court, copyright court, big money court. They have 1 hearing or 2 hearings for the whole day. When you're in family law court, it could be like 50 people waiting for the same judge. Okay. You see that shift?
Yeah.
So when I was there were a lot of women who ended up on like the poverty side. Like, the men would show up. This one guy, he was there because of failure to pay. So it was like failure to pay. So I was like, oh no, judge, force him to pay or bench him, put him in jail, right? Mm-hmm. And the judge was he used to work in criminal court, but he came over to family court. So he told the guy, shake him down. He said, okay, take off your shoes. This joker had almost $3,000 in his Timbs, but he wouldn't pay. So we had to do a motion to compel. So the judge took the money because he was like in arrears. So there were so many women who just needed more than just enough, right? They would have this one woman, I remember, she made too much for child care credit, but she couldn't rely on the child support check because sometimes it wasn't. Or in a divorce, sometimes the woman would be so hell-bent on keeping the house that she would ignore the equity that was in the house, or the equity that was in the pension. Because what I found was that people don't always teach women about money. So if you don't know about money, you'll be like Esau, right? You'll be negotiating for pennies on the dollar. Meanwhile, they got the pension, they got the equity in the building. One of my clients, she's like a big time singer. She was getting a divorce, and I was like, did you ask for the valuation of his business? She was like, what you mean the valuation of his business? I was like, you've been married for over 30 years. You relied upon him. You were building him up, so you're entitled to this. So that conversation about, for years, we're like, oh, and one day someone's going to take us far, far away from poverty, or one day a man is going to pick us up and turn us around and make us feel worthy, or they're going to name us and claim us. But what happens when you end up in a divorce? What happens if you don't know? It got to the point where I used to have to tell them, look, sister girl, you better have some negotiations before you start having those conversations about divorce. You need to know where that money is. You need to know where that account is. You need to have a conversation, because the best thing is a conversation and documentation as opposed to going to court. And then if that wasn't so bad, 2 of my sisters had died from domestic violence, and when the one died from domestic violence, I have found out that she would run to my mom, and she would run to my mom and say such and such beat her up or something like that. And my mom was living in the projects. Well, dude knew where my mom was. So sometimes he would threaten her, and then my sister would go back to him. But when I realized that my mom would tell her and counsel her, like, don't listen to him and stop fighting him and stop doing this, I realized that broken women will break women because they tell their stories. So perhaps in my brain, if we tell stories of empowerment and encouragement, overcoming, not the rags to riches to focus on the rags, but say, I was there too. And this is how I overcame. This is how I broke through. This is how I changed my situation. And this is why I talk a lot about and entrepreneurship, because, you know, my husband loves me, but when he had the control over the money, when I needed him to give me some money, I gave him the power to pick and choose of when he said yes or no, you know, as opposed to now, you know what I mean? We still love each other, but I don't need to be tiptoeing on stilettos talking about, if we can hubby, do you mind if I get some bundles? I mean, this is me, but you know, do you mind if, you know, if I do this, or will you help me pay for my car note? It's a different conversation when you are on the same level playing field, because God gave women the power to attain wealth too. You know what I mean? So I work with men. It's no problem. But my heart, the scars that's on my heart, you know, that turned into beauty marks, that's from years of issues and abandonment, years of shutting down, years of muting my voice, years of watching even women in church who doing all the work, but they didn't want the title because it wasn't right, or it's not godly, or, you know, years of us wanting and saying what we want, having enough money for a $10,000 party or a $50,000 wedding, but we don't have anything to leave to our children. Wow. It's kind of crazy how that happens.
That's right. And speaking of the women, before I ask, before my other questions, I want to show the book that I'm still reading the book, and it's because I'm like always changing, doing something from here and there. But one thing I find it is the book was a blessing for me. UPLEVEL Your Life, the unapologetic guide to manifesting success. Mrs. Moore, tell me about that title and what exactly, I mean, it's in English. I know what some of the words mean, but tell me what is this saying?
So what is essentially saying is that you don't have to stay where you start. You can up level. Like each time there's ever levels. I always look at life as a chessboard at this point. Business, life, love is a chessboard. So when you allow yourself, it's a game, right? My kids, I have 2 boys, they're gamers. When they was playing Mario's, there was a level. So I'm like, so you need to go upwards to each additional level. Sometimes we get stuck, you know, where we're satisfied. Or sometimes we'll go somewhere, it hurts, and we'll go back to where we used to be. You know what I mean? But as I talk about in UPLEVEL, how the first thing I tell you about the messy part 1, but part 2 is about, you know, betting on yourself. You know what I mean? Like you got to bet on yourself. You got to give yourself permission. So if you think of it like life as 10, 20 different levels, I think there's over 21 chapters in the book. Each level, there's another part of you that becomes the full manifestation of who you truly are. Each level, each breakdown, there's a new part of you that breaks through when you don't get stuck and stay in that burdensome place, you know? So when you allow yourself using the power up to go to each additional level. Sometimes we get so used to just being like, this is where I am right now, and this is where I'm supposed to stay. I came from broke from the projects where my mama picked some other man just to get out of her daddy's house. But if I would have stayed where I started, then I wouldn't be the fullness of who I am, because no one spoke anything differently. No one gave me a platform. No one breathed life into me other than the Most High God. So, but it's already inside of me. So each time you break through the burden, each time you break through the pain, each time you break through the transgression, each time you break through the negativity, each time you break through of that status quo, then it's like a new level. First of all, you realize that guess what? The whole time you were holding your breath in. You was not allowing you to be the full breath. You was not allowing yourself to expand. So when you look at your life, your spiritual life, your mental life, your business life, your you know what I mean, your physical life, your family life, you know, each level has to be the fullness, the manifestation of who you are. Like I said, if you ever want to know from where you are, you know, like literally take an assessment, because we talk about MBA and financial success, but that's in anything. You got to give yourself a mind shift that I don't have to stay where I started. Who does that? I don't know anybody. I don't know no runner who stays where they started. I don't know anybody who starts a business who stay where they started. I don't know any babies who be like, no, I'm gonna just stay right here in the crib. We all have to grow. We all have to expand. We all have that sovereignty. So each time you take another level, it's like, so the up level is like the game set mentality. It's like, I'm not going to get stuck here. You know what I mean? I'm not going to stay here. I'm supposed to stand somewhere else. Some people stand on the promises of God, but they don't go nowhere. I'm like, you're supposed to stand on the promises of God, but the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And if you ain't get off of your block, then you didn't really stand on the promises of God.
That's right. That's right. Oh, wow. Wow. So, and I'm going to try to touch a little bit of everything. I almost just need to bring you in and be a speaker in my town. But okay. So you talk about up leveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the part about the business, the estate planning, the branding, building the legacy. A person has a dream. A person has an idea.
Mm-hmm.
We get on social media and immediately we start telling everything. Mm. Stacey uses the unrestricted, unlimited everywhere. Stacey's excited. What's the first thing if we want to do things right, Mrs. Moore? If we want these things that you say we can obtain and this business that you say we can grow and find wealth, what's the first thing we do?
The first thing you have to do is value it. Can't nobody steal from you if you value it. Like if you value it enough that you take ownership of it, it's almost like when we dating a man, if we value it enough, we start taking ownership. Like that's my man. That's my this. You personalize it. You know what I mean? You start dreaming about it. You start speaking about it. So if God gives you an idea or a brand name, then you got to take ownership of it. Nobody can steal from you what is you pretty much say, this is mine. So that's the first thing that you have to do is to take ownership of that idea. Sometimes we get to the point where ideas are just like, we're so used to being ideologists, right? We're so used to saying, oh, I had an idea. Oh, I did this, I did that, or somebody. But when you have an idea and you're like, oh my God, this is the thing. I don't want nobody else to take it. You value it enough. You don't just take the domain. Because some people be like, oh, I got an idea and they buy the domain. No, you start living in that space, in that place. You start speaking those things as though they were. You start having creative thoughts as to what's going to be next. That's like, and then you take dominion over it and you're saying, okay, this is mine. So if you want to turn that idea into income, then how do you do it? First, you take the domain and then you ideally say, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a brand. And if you turn it into a brand, it's not a t-shirt brand unless you Fashion Nova, but it's like, okay, what is it going to be? So you got to think those things into existence as though they are. So if the idea was to be a hairstylist, then you turn that idea into something for the hairstyling sector. Or the idea is for you to be a real estate broker, then you turn that into the real estate world. If your idea is to be a director and you want to help people with directorship so that you can get into production, then you walk into that thing and you start naming and claiming it because you valued it. You valued it enough that now you put an invoice to it. See, as long as you don't value it, somebody's going to take it from you because you're not going to be possessive over it. You're not going to think that it's yours. You're going to be like, it's here today and gone tomorrow. And that's not your fault. Because if you're Black and brown, you come into this world, we were told that we were property. Property does not own property. That's why it's so hard for most Black people to appreciate intellectual property because property didn't own property. So somebody would take our ideas, make it seem like it's flimsy. They will run with those ideas, appreciate the profits in that intellectual property and register it for themselves. But when we stop being so stuck and stop thinking that we need to sweat equity or work hard for our money or appreciate that brilliance is bankable. So when we start bankrolling the brilliance and our ideas and our creativity and our mindset and the scripts that we write and the plays that we produce, then now you appreciate, oh, it's not meant for somebody to steal, because just even though it's not physical, that intellectual property will now allow me to leverage that thing. Because when you take the mastership the ownership of the thing that comes through you and for you. Somebody once said, my voice comes with an invoice. So when you appreciate that your voice, your vision, your value, that all comes with an invoice, because that is the assets that you are now going to use as an equitable exchange. They get something, you get something. But as long as you don't value what comes through you, then it's always going to be worthless. You can never build wealth if you think it's worthless. If it's worthless to name it, it's worthless to claim it, it's worthless to protect it, worthless to show up for it, worthless to pitch it, worthless to get a certification, worthless to get money and to get a loan, worthless to even sacrifice for it. As long as it's worthless to you, it won't ever build wealth for you. So it's a mindset shift that you got to make.
So, okay. I like that. So once I realize I have an idea, once I realize I have an asset and it's bankable, right?
Yes.
Learning that from reading your book. It's bankable.
Yes.
Then I come to someone in your that holds your position. Because when I've heard you speak, you really made it clear that when you speak of protection, you don't just mean me saying I own it. I've got to have something on paper, and I need to come to someone that knows how to guide me as far as what to do with this idea.
Right. I will say, as a lawyer, of course, I'm going to tell you, go to a lawyer, because there's different ways. I see people, let's say the idea is now something that you've created. Okay. We'll just say in your world, like you created a play, right? So that's a script. But now you're like, but Tone, I do more than plays. I have a whole, we'll just say fearless production, because you had this idea that you want to be a producer, you want to be a director, you want to help people. So you came up with fearless production, but you don't want anyone else to come up with fearless production. So you would have to trademark the name, because if you don't take ownership of that name by a trademark, I can use it. People can Google it real quick and be like, oh, that's pretty hot. I want to do that too. And fearless production, you'd be like, okay, fearless production is something that we do with regards, we only produce studio ready scripts, and we do, and we walk people through Universal Studios. You know what I mean? So that's the idea in your head. Now you named it. Now you have to claim it with the trademark. You also have to claim it with the domain. And then now when it's yours, when it's registered, then Fearless Productions can maybe have a Fearless Production agency, and other people can now utilize it. Maybe you'll teach people how to be a director. Maybe you'll teach people how to turn around and create plays, that sell out in like 2,000 or more studios. Maybe you'll teach people how not to be fearful when someone wants to invest in something that you created in 2 minutes, because you're fearful that somebody raping you of your brilliance, as opposed to now this is your opportunity to level up to the next level, so that other people can see you, so that you can expand that Fearless Production brand. You feel what I'm saying? So the idea was to create something so that you could produce like awesome and amazing production. And then you're like, oh my God, Fearless Production is pretty hot. And then that's where you take ownership of that. And then people are like, oh, I want to learn the Fearless Production way. Like, how did you do that? How do you find people? You're like, oh, you know what? Let me help you. And then you start having the licensing agreement, and because you don't want anyone else to take a derivative, because creativity is not a choice, but a creativity comes from the Most High God. So when you understand and appreciate that something like that, you're going to hold on to it, and you're going to make sure that you ain't getting replicated or duplicated in this area, because there is always someone else who was like, you know what? I think this is a great opportunity and I want to do it too. That's where we got to understand and appreciate that one idea can now become so much more than you've ever seen or heard before. Okay. Just like that.
Wow. Mrs. Moore, you also have in your bio and on your website estate planning.
Yeah.
When one thinks of estate planning, do I have to be rich, or what does that involve?
I told my client today, I was like, I don't want you to think of estate planning like it's a huge dynasty or something like that, or because you're dying, it's more about, call it life protection planning. Like you're protecting your life, you're protecting your income, you're protecting your family, you're protecting your estate.
Is it the same thing as a will? I'm sorry.
Well, it's so much with regards to it, but a
Okay.
will is not just estate planning. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, so depending on how big your estate is. Like someone had said, Tone, when you come and talk to my student with my group, I want you to talk about a basic estate plan. I said, well, what's a basic estate plan? Is it like brokey broke and they living in the project? I said, or do they at least have one house? You know, I said, do they have a house and a car? And how many kids do they have? Do they have 2 or 3 kids? Do they have a special needs kids? Is it somebody who leveled up and they had a job, but they was also a CEO from 9 to 12, 2 o'clock in the morning? And now they have like maybe a production company, and now they have a trademark, and now they also have a copyright. She said, wow, there's really no hard and fast rule. I was like, no, there's groups and sections of people. But when you're thinking about, people don't like estate plan because automatically they think that they're dying. And I'm like, no, you're not dying. You're just taking ownership of the protection, ownership of the fact that if something should happen to you and you have children, you'll have a will that says, hey, if I pass away, I want Sally to get the house, and I want Rob to get the rental property, and I want Timmy to get this life insurance. That's a simple estate plan where everything is outright. But if you start owning some things, like we talk about, the power of ownership manifests much. So if you have that, then you're like, oh, but now I have a car and now I have a dealership. So you start with the simple estate plan, which is simple, is a basic will for distribution. Whatever I got goes to my spouse, or whatever I got goes to my son or my child or my family. That's simple. But then you also have a healthcare directive that says that if something should happen to me when I'm on the operating table, this is what I want. I don't want a DNR. I don't want blood transfusion, or you do. You do want to be intubated, or you don't. You know, you identify what you really don't want to happen, because some people, I don't want a blood transfusion. You know, you get a chance, the power of ownership, owning your voice and being the CEO of your life and your legacy, even in sickness and in health. That's where you have that estate planning. Then, like I told my clients today, even with regards to we do durable power of attorney, because a power of attorney means as long as you're cognizant, then your voice matters. But a durable means that it's whether you're cognizant or not. So it's the duration of your life, sickness and in health, mental capacity or well able, right? So that's where you get a chance to decide, hey, I want this person. I want them to make life decisions. I want them to talk to my doctors, but maybe you don't trust them with money. So then you have another person who makes financial decisions. That's the basic estate plan, with a will, a durable power of attorney, a healthcare directive. Now, I also tell people, if you have minor children, you should pick a guardian, okay? Because by state law, if you have minor children who are under 18 years old, you need someone to take care of your child if, God forbid, something happens to you or the child's other parent, right? So also with regards to it, now some people want to own nothing and control everything, but I tell them, master what you know first. Master the business. Maybe get a holding company. Maybe, you know, have another limited liability company, because that's asset protection 101. And then if you want to continue on with estate planning with a family living trust, or whether it's a revocable, meaning that you can change your mind and revoke and change your mind and be like, oh, I want this beneficiary. I don't want this beneficiary. Oh, I want this asset. No, I don't want this asset. Or an irrevocable, meaning that now it's out of your hands. You really do own nothing and control everything. And you shifted everything over to a family trust, right? And, you know, and with that being said, some people are like, oh, and I don't have to pay taxes. You got to pay taxes coming in. So if you're going to transfer real estate, you paying taxes. If you're going to put some money in or mutual fund, there may be a taxable exchange. If you're going to sell and buy something, there may be a shift in exchange. So you got to have those conversations. So with estate planning, that's the basic part of it. It could be a secondary with regards to having a family revocable trust or irrevocable trust. But then you also need family advisors. You know, you need an attorney who's a tax attorney. You need a real estate person. You need an insurance person. You need a financial broker person. You might even need a financial therapist. It is a thing, you know? So, but there's levels. There's levels. So I tell people, I'm a big proponent, maybe because I am from the projects, and maybe because what was that 3-card Monty, where I was a victim of the 3-card Monty, right? Where you looking at me, it's pretty much like something on the streets because I was gullible. And they hide, you ask somebody, they know what it is. They hide they hide whatever it is, a card or something under a card, and they be like, find where the money is, you know, where the money resides under the card or something like that. And you pick it, and they say, oh, you win. They let you win like 2 or 3 times, and then they go for the jugular, and then they take your money away, right? Well, sometimes that's what it feels like because it's so much. And with regards to being in so much, I want you to understand that there's always going to be people who are going to try to play you. There's always going to be people who are going to try to take what's rightfully yours. But that's when you find someone. Now, there was a question with regards to financial therapy. I'm actually taking this class, and it's a brain spotting class for financial therapists. I'm not a therapist, but I didn't have to be a therapist to take the class. And it's literally, you go to the trauma, the root of your story. Maybe it's a story that that keeps people poor in poverty, right? One of the roots of my story was that I had to work hard. I felt like I had to be a hard worker, like if I didn't work hard. And another trauma part was that because I was devalued so much as a child and as a young adult, and shucks, up until I was 42 when I got my voice back, I felt like I was there was a worthlessness inside of me. So I had to get to the root of the worthlessness. And I realized that because I was my mama's mistake all these years, feeling like I was her mistake. And then I had to grow past that mistake. So that was then I felt like I was her mistake. When you feel like someone's mistake and you're always getting in trouble, there's a worthlessness about you. So I would always feel like I needed to get more degrees, or I needed to let people like pretty much like, you know, get it for free. So I didn't have to negotiate or anything else like that. So there was that worthlessness that was holding me back from my wealthiness. So when I realized that, that was amazing to me, but it wasn't until I took that class, you know, saying, oh my God, I was this many years old when I realized that over 40 some odd years feeling worthless. Now I realize how I was pretty much a doormat, because I had wrote this book, Stop Being a Doormat, because I was a doormat at a law firm, you know? So I had to stop being that doormat so I can allow myself to be a better version of myself. And there's a lot of us probably who have some battle scars with money, maybe some thoughts or maybe some misteachings. Like people say the love of money, but they say money, not the love, but money. Sometimes they say the love. And as soon as you start talking to money, they, oh, here we go again. And I'm like, but what's that backstory that makes you repel? Because what I realize is that you can never receive what you always repel. But when you understand that it's that mindset shifts, when you understand that, guess what? Wealth starts in your mind first, because you can never receive what you can't receive in your mind and your body and your spirit. So that's where it comes into play with regards to a financial therapist, to help you dig deep into the core of some truth that was passed down and shaken together. And, you know, we don't always have a will, but guess what? When people die, you know how they bequeath something? They bequeath a car, they bequeath a house. Well, for generations, when it comes to Black and brown people, someone has been bequeathing us the spirit of poverty. And somebody in your family tree is going to have to break it.
Wow. Wow. You know, I've never heard about a financial therapist, but when you start to think about what you've learned, it's interesting, because I guess a lot of things that's holding us back, when people say get out of your own way, perhaps well, you said you can't make money if you have something negative in your head holding you back, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Tracy says amazing information. You know, our time is running out. I want to give you a chance to say what you want to say, but I'm just so anxious to put this chart up here to let people know exactly. Excuse me for laughing. I get excited like a little kid. I get your daily emails, and then I get your the website you sent me, and I go on the website, and I'm just going to put it up because, and I'm looking at how many things there are. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have something for a while to motivate me to read, to give me some feed my spirit with some good things.
Yes.
Let's see, Mrs. Moore. Let's see what I pulled up. Where is it at? So let me take the comment down. So we've touched base on the fact that we know that you're a lawyer. We know that you're doing things to empower women. But when I went to your, when I put in your name, Toni Moore ESQ, and we'll put the link up. So you're teaching and speaking about protecting your trademark, legal advisory session, asset protection guide, confessions of a boss. I like that. Asset protection contracts, handle your business book, and be legally chic. Chic.
Yes, chic.
Chic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, listen to me.
Yes.
Chic. Chic. Can you let me get this off. Can you, for me, tell me, how do I say this? For a woman that's starting out building a brand, or a woman that wants to leave a legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know these are things you touch on. If someone was decide to go to your site tonight, what would you suggest that the woman starts with?
Startup person, I would suggest getting the book Handle Your Business.
Handle your business.
Because that is literally an overview of business. It's literally handle your business, turning your dreams into a reality. I think that is like number one. That's probably the first thing with regards to it. Confessions of a Boss is Badass Woman Slaying Entrepreneurship. And so that was my what is it? It's kind of like a blogging speaking platform that I turned literally
You're
into
smiling a lot. You're smiling a lot. So give it to us. So what is it about that book got you smiling like that?
No. I said the Confessions of a Boss.
Okay.
Badass Woman Slaying Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So that's one of the things, because it talks about the mindset. It talks about legal. It talks about certain things that we have to deal with our haters. You know, sometimes our haters, our worst saboteurs could be ourselves. So that's how I was talking about it. I'm going to open it back up to have more conversations with my girlfriends and Confessions of a Boss, because a lot of us are definitely in that realm with regards to, because the cool thing is when you step into your next level, you know, and you think that you're all by yourself. I see you, Denise. When you start listening, like I love watching and reading about self-help, mastery, because of the fact that, you know what, you realize that you wasn't the only one. Like when you start telling your story about plays and productions, there's somebody else who's 3 steps behind you. Like this is a journey. So, you know, when you're sharing the information, when you're sharing classes, when you're sharing training, you know what I mean? Now someone else be like, oh my God, she did it. I can do it too. You want to get to that? I can do it too. I did it because someone else did it. Someone else is doing it because someone else did it. We're all collectively on this journey. Some of us get stuck, but then you hear about some girl who was from broke, who didn't even think that she was worthy of anything, who life had pretty much made her feel like she was worthless until she made a decision to choose herself and bet on herself. You know, now look at what this life is going to be. You know what I mean? Someone said, would you say these guidelines are the same? Like at the end of the day, when you are an author, speaker, coach, it's these like poet, storyteller, motivational speaker, it's pretty much, you still have to create a business, right? Now, will you create a limited liability company as an author, speaker, coach? Maybe not. Motivational speaker, you might do it as a gig employee, but this is what I know is that you get some benefits. Say benefits. You get like real benefits if you allow yourself to be a business owner. There's business credit that you can leverage. There's business credit cards. You know what I mean? There's Denise Will, who was saying something. She's actually the procurementqueen.com. She helps business owners get like business procurement contracts, like have contracts with the government, local government, state governments. You can't do that as a gig person. What I know for sure, and this is for real, is that when you become, this is what I know, when you're a CEO of a business, you get respected. When you show up with an EIN, you get even more open doors. When you show up with an EIN and now you have a DNB and now you have financial credit and backing and now you're a certified business owner, then there's even more respect. There's so many different levels that you get a chance to get to. So if you ever choose you this day between a social security number or a federal EIN number, I hope you choose the federal EIN number. If you choose between starting a business and saying, I don't know where this is going to lead me or guide me, at least you take an ownership. You're not living by default. You're naming and claiming and designing the next level for your life, your legacy. What I know, because at one point I did work for Primerica Financial Services, there's one thing to be just over broke, and there's still quite another to be able to be the CEO of your bank, to be your own banker, to pretty much level up and literally pimp the rules. The IRS has set up some rules for business owners that you're not going to get as an employee, period. There's opportunities for when we pay our taxes as employees, guess what? Uncle Sam get his cut first, and then we get the leftovers. But when it comes to as a business owner, you take the lion's share, and then the net, even after you pay all of your bills, even after you pay an investment in either your self-directed IRA or your solo 401k or your individual retirement account, guess what? You write those off first, and that's usually over $50,000. So I know people like, well, what about when we start? Well, guess what? You don't stay where you start. This is an opportunity for you to understand and appreciate that. Guess what? When they talk about that American pie is an LLC or an INC. It is not a JOB unless you from the Richard E. Whiteville and you know somebody and you was maybe a trust fund baby or somebody opened the door because they want a family hookup. Most of us don't come from a hookup. So we got to step up in what I call bones. We got to walk it. We got to talk it. We got to see what other people are doing. And we got to understand that, guess what? There's so many loopholes for CEOs. Ain't too many for employees.
Ooh. Mrs. Moore, are you teaching any classes, or do we just go on the podcast and listen by the topics we choose?
So I am going to, pretty soon, you'll start seeing me talk about like a wait list for the BawsedUp. It's the BawsedUp boot camp. It's like 9 weeks. Literally, BawsedUp boot camp is literally like bankrolling your brilliance into a business, so that it can give you the life that you want, the finances you want. I'm a former adjunct professor where they was only paying $3,000 to teach, whether it was 3 kids or 20 students. Okay. Where now I'm just like, when I found out that I can bankroll my brilliance, one of my coaches, she had bankrolled her brilliance. In 2 hours, she made like $56,000. That shifted my whole life, because before me seeing her do that, it was like billable hours I have to work for $56,000. Until I realized that it's not about one-to-one always. Sometimes it's about taking that class, leading and guiding someone to. For me, it would be more like finding a bankable solution that's deep down on the inside of you, whether it is the training on how to be a director or training on how to get financing for a play or whatever you do so well. But that's how you do it. You bankroll your own brilliance, your brilliant idea, your brilliant intellectual property, your brilliant creativity. Like, I'm a songwriter, my husband is a producer, but I'm also a lawyer. I don't be like songwriter, producer, wannabe, but really it depends on where it is and what group or what classification that people need me on. You know what I mean? And I was about to say, tú también, and you as well. So when we understand that, for me, BawsedUp Bootcamp is literally turning your knowledge, skills, and abilities into currency. The knowledge that you have, your skills and abilities, right? So that's where we talk about, of course, we talk about business, we talk about contracting, walking through a contract so you don't get your assets took. But then it's more about what can you teach from your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities. And then how do you turn around and bankroll that? How you turn around and leverage that, and then of course y'all cover your copyrights, but we cover the copyrights and the trademarks, because sometimes people just need an overview and then they can do a lot of stuff that they need to do on their own. And that's what I do very well. I was an adjunct professor for over 20 years. I'm a lawyer. My heart, I tell people all the time, I'm a teacher by nature, lawyer by trade. So that's the next thing that I'll be doing, BawsedUp Boot Camp. It's probably going to be in January, because I already know my cousins is not trying to get all this business and all this tea by the end of the year. So we get started at the end of the year, but we boss up for real in January.
Well, please, in case I don't see it, tag me. Maybe tell your assistant, your secretary, somebody when this class starts up, remember to let Stacey Thomas know about it. Denise will, let me tell you, she is keeping this thread going. She's speaking highly of you. She says, just know that not all attorneys are good. I recommend Toni. So she says, plus Toni does estate planning. Is there, you said something about what she does. Can you say it again in case someone needs to contact her too?
Yes. So Denise Will, the procurement queen, she helps people become certified business owners, whether it's a certified Black-owned business owner, a certified woman-owned business owner, a certified LGBTQ business owner, a certified veteran business owner. There's like special different types of contracts with regards to it for the certified business owners. And those are set-asides. So they're set aside at a municipal level, at a local level, at a county level, at a state level. And then when you get certifications to be a woman-owned business owner or Black-owned business or minority business owner, then now you have a backdoor entrance to supplier diversity programs, right? So with the supplier diversity programs, there's people like Denise. If you follow Procurement Queen on Instagram, she's like, there's a contract for that. There was a contract with people. This kid made almost $100,000 creating their own mask. She's like, there's a contract for that. I know there's a contract at the NBA. Sometimes they're looking for stylists because you need stylists. You know what I mean? And there's the supplier diversity contract, because usually most people will do business with people who they like and know and look like them and talk like them. But with the supplier diversity, they realize that sometimes you got to bring people who look like your consumers. Right. And even at the federal level and the state level, sometimes they realize that there has to be some set asides for people, so that it's not just for rich people or white people or people who are in the higher echelon in a socioeconomic fraternity of the most high of whatever, but that they have to set it aside to give it opportunity. So Denise will, she's procurementqueen.com, but she definitely has classes. She had challenges, she has trainings, you know, like I tell her, I said, girl, I think you eat, sleep, and you know.
I was gonna say, tell Denise, hit us, you know, let us know how to contact her. Yes. But Mrs. Moore, is there anything, because you're gonna say, Stacey, you told me 30 minutes, and I could talk to you. You know, I know you're just you got a whole lot of information and knowledge up in your head, and I like how you bring God into it, and you acknowledge the fact that you know that he plays a major part in all that's going on. Is there anything about you that I did not cover that you need to be told? Oh, before you answer that, I'm sorry. The young lady that was asking you about the entertainment, being a storyteller and spoken word, is a friend of mine. She's one of those people that if she knows about you, she's going to bless you just because she's that kind of person. Not a lot of people that should have supported her, but she's proven, Mrs. Moore, that she's being picked up and noticed without the haters. If she has started, she's about to start her one-woman show, I think on a local station or maybe streaming app. She has her poetry. She needs to follow you, because when you start talking about the branding and everything, she falls under that, just to be clear, right?
Yeah, she also, with regards to like the one woman show, I'm sure you probably can guide her as well, because that's your area. Yeah, I mean, you playing hostess or whatever, but that's still your area. But with regards to
get me, but go ahead.
But you know, she already knows that any of her plays and her manuscript should definitely be copyright, because she would be mad as sin. Okay. Ooh. if somebody else picked up her manuscript and then turned around and started reiterating in Tennessee. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
then and then they blow up and she'd be like, oh, that's my story. Because that's what some comedians had to find out, that they had to copyright some of their jokes. Because some people be like, yo, Shlemmy, can I borrow that joke? And then that joke becomes theirs. And then once people hear it, then they took ownership and then you can't utilize that anymore. So one of the things, that's her brilliance, that's her bankable knowledge. So she definitely has to. And as of 2019, you have to, the recordation, shucks, I don't care if she recorded for herself, you know what I mean, put it on a podcast or something like that, because it goes from your knowledge to the recordation, or your knowledge to the recordation, and it turns into an ebook or a transcript, or it turns into a script, and you need to upload that to copyright.gov, because that's like, if somebody do a cease and desist, and that's like over $150,000 because you did copyright.gov, and you, as opposed to you saying that was mine, but you don't have no receipts. I tell people all the time, just so, even though it's not physical, it's like you named and claimed that house. You bought the house, or you got the house built up from your specs. You had it in your dream, you got it built up, and then you ain't put no door on it. And then they put a door on it, but you always kept it open. And then you go here and there and everywhere else, and then somebody else takes ownership of your house. And how do you prove that that was your house? Because you dreamed it, because you had an architect design it, because you paid for the builders, or because you got receipts. The same thing with intellectual property.
Wow, you hear that, Special K? I hope you heard that. If not, I'll tell you, come back and watch this video and follow Miss Moore. Okay, now, because I didn't mean to startle you or like just stop you abruptly, but now I want you to say whatever it is that I didn't say that they need to know before we end this show.
Well, I mean, you have been very gracious with regards to your platform, you know, asking, shed a little bit of tears and stuff like that. So we girlfriends now, you know, girlfriends building wealth, you know. So that's one of the things that I do with regards to it. I didn't want it to be so scary, but, you know, as girlfriends, my mama had girlfriends that would feed us. Mama had girlfriends who would let us sleep in their basements. So I was like, you know what? I want to be a girlfriend too. You may not going to be able to, you know, eat my basement, stuff like that. But if I can help you, teach you how to fish, teach you how to bankroll your brilliance, teach you how to overcome adversity, teach you with regards to any opportunities for you to see resources. Like there's a free leadership class. Anytime I see, I'll be like, hey, girlfriend, did you see this? You know, did you see this opportunity? You see this scholarship? Terry and Girlfriends Building Wealth, she's always given us information on how we can use other people's property, their credit, so that we can utilize it for our own business, you know? So, you know, even my mama had girlfriends. So I'm like the next generation of girlfriends. But this time, it's not for us to survive. This time is for us to design the life that we're meant to thrive in.
Toni Moore, look at me calling your whole name. The last thing, we've put up how to contact you and how to follow you, and people can always hit me up. I don't have a problem saying how to connect with somebody. Mm-hmm. What's your legacy going to be?
You know what?
When people talk about you, what's your legacy?
I hope and pray that at the end of the day, my legacy is that she did not let the wound stop her. You know, she realized how to turn her worthlessness into worthiness, and she lived on her own terms. And then she taught so many other women, men, and children to do the same thing. Because this is what I know for sure. It's not where we start. It's where we give ourselves the permission to stand. That's what it's all about. And I'm standing on the promises of God, because he told me that he has given me the power to attain wealth. So I'm going to shout from the mountaintops that if we can do it, if we can just take ownership of who we are and what we have and what we can do, just think how much more better this would be when we go from damsel in distress to millionaires on our own terms, in our own watch. That's going to be awful, awesome, and amazing.
Mrs. Moore, thank you. As Denise said, you've given, I didn't want to have too many questions because I know that you know your worth, and I know that we can't always just give. We got to eat. We need gas for the vehicles. So I want to tell you, thank you for all the information you gave me, because you could have said, you know what, you guys, I'm going to tell you about myself, how to reach me, and that's going to be it. I am wishing you the very best. Please don't forget, I'm one of those people, when you start your classes up, tag me, let me know so I can share it. And once again, thank you for coming on and blessing not only me, but the viewers that joined us tonight too.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Miss Stacey.
Have a great night, beautiful. Hey, once again, if you know me, I am Stacey Thomas, Unrestricted Unlimited. We've been blessed, right? So this is what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to follow Toni more. See what it is that she can offer you. And here's the thing. If there's nothing for you, you probably know someone that needs her or needs to follow her. Okay? Do that for me. Share this video. And if you think people on your page need to see more of me and see this video, go over to YouTube. Check out the Stacey Thomas Unrestricted Unlimited Talk Show. Don't put me in a box. And remember, don't stress too much about yesterday. Don't worry too much about tomorrow. Let's live today. And I'm going to take something from Miss Toni. Let's get that money. You guys have a great night.